In Aarhus, we're doing something that we take the credit that nobody in the whole world has done this before. We started last year an experiment to see what happens if we try to start looking at the other animals and plants that live in the same space that we call the city of Aarhus. We try to see them as citizens that are currently sort of excluded from all the democratic processes. And what happens if we then assign an ambassador to each of them? And this ambassador can start hacking the system, start going to all the citizen hearings, all the meetings of democratic processes, and remind people that the butterflies and the bumblebees and the birds should also be part of our city somehow. The one you see here is on behalf of the bird called the common swift. And the sort of the text says we want high-rise buildings with crevices because this bird needs not too smooth like facades of buildings, because then it cannot find any place to nest. And most people, they love this bird. It has an amazing sort of sound of summer when it comes to the city. It catches a lot of insects and is really beautiful, like air acrobats. Any kid or any adult you ask, they love to live somewhere near this bird. It just brings more beauty to the world and to your surroundings. The problem is that all the buildings we build these days, they have these really smooth concrete facades. They don't have any crevices. And I don't think that's because architects, they don't care about this either, or engineers or politicians. I just think that nobody got the idea of suggesting to an architect, hey, wait a minute, there's something missing from this building. This building cannot host this bird because there's no crevices. So in Aarhus, we invented a person who can do this. We now have an ambassador on behalf of this bird, and this man, he recently influenced the whole political discussion about our high-rise buildings, clearly suggesting that it should be a quality parameter of all these high-rise buildings in the future, that they should have crevices and that they should include space for biodiversity. And the amazing thing is that the process went through, and now in the final sort of political suggestion for high-rise buildings, these things are mentioned. And it's now taking into account when building buildings in Aarhus that you should also try to include space for birds and plants and other types of biodiversity. So I think personally that this is a small example of what it can do to have an ambassador. Even though we mean this really seriously, we also see it as an opportunity to be really playful about this. Activism is often about being critical and negative and protesting, but not when we do it. We try to do a kind of activism where we are positive and playful and constructive. So we always try to add things that could add a little bit more color and fantasy and magic to the city on behalf of the species that we love.